viruses, and other microbes are always at the ready to fill their ranks.
All right, deep breath and bear down. Let's go. Push.
Right now, whole squadrons are standing by to infiltrate baby the moment he comes out.
Happy birthday.
Streptococcus, Staphylococcus, Lactobacillus. Just a handful of the thousands of critters with scary-sounding names racing to colonize baby's body. Skin to mouth to guts, it's a full-on alien assault, with each new critter vying for space. Horrifying as it seems, babies have been subject to this microbe invasion for as long as we've been human, even longer. And it turns out that's a good thing. The start of a mutually beneficial relationship honed over millions of years.
Until recently, all the microbes we thought about when we thought about the human body were germs, right, infectious agents. But in fact, the vast majority of microbes that we come in contact with on a daily basis, and the ones that live with us, are actually beneficial. They belong here, they live in our bodies, and our bodies rely on their activities to keep us healthy.
By the time he leaves the hospital, our baby will have 10 times more microbial cells thriving in and on him than his own human cells, fending off invaders, producing energy, helping him grow. What's scary is the effect modern life and medicine will have on them.
We have succeeded in controlling infectious diseases, controlling pathogens at a cost, and that collateral cost is on our own microbes.
While baby will no doubt fight for the rest of his life to keep bad microbes out, more and more we're learning that just as important will be making sure the right microbes get in. Once upon a time, and really not all that long ago, people were oblivious to the microbes living in, on, and around us. Dirt, muck, nature was all a part of life. Today, not so much. For most of us, life looks like this: paved, sterile, antibacterial, sealed behind double-pane glass and breathing filtered air. We spend 90% of our lives holed up indoors. Any microbes that do make their way into our modernized bubbles, we try our best to kill off. We've engaged in this battle for more than a century now. Ever since scientists first peered through their microscopes and started identifying the aliens inside us, they were the bad guys, the nasty germs that made us sick.
Microbes were born to human knowledge as enemies, so we declare war to microbes.
Death to microbes became medicine's mantra.
Cholera, plague, tuberculosis, these are all bacterial diseases, and they've been terrible. And we have been at war with these terrible organisms to try to control them so that we can have good, healthy lives.
And with the advent of antibiotics in the middle of the last century, we suddenly wielded a weapon that would give us a leg up in the war.
In the hands of the doctor, the antibiotics are powerful weapons, striking as they do at the very roots of an increasing number of infectious diseases.
No doubt the discovery of antibiotics is humanity's greatest achievements, saving countless millions of lives. But like any war, this one wasn't without its costs. In just the last few years, scientists have begun discovering a lot of friendly fire.
We started studying microbes because of the diseases they cause, and that made us prejudiced against all microbes. Now we are learning that there are a lot of good microbes, but with the means we are using to control the bad guys, we are causing terrible damage to the good guys.
Try as we might to exterminate them, we're increasingly discovering we need these microbes every bit as much as they need us. In fact, look close enough and you'll begin to realize they are us. From the moment we're born, every one of us teems with trillions of microorganisms. From our elbows and armpits to our mouth and guts. And most of them don't make us sick. Quite the opposite. On our skin, Staphylococcus secretes a film that keeps it moist and supple, producing a barrier that keeps infectious germs out. Lining our nasal cavities, a benign species of lactobacillus protects against sinusitis. Their mere presence reduces inflammation by crowding out other invaders and driving them away. And down in our colons, Bacteroides, one of hundreds of bacterial species that dwell down here, helps synthesize vitamin K, an essential nutrient for clotting blood and maintaining bone health that we couldn't live without. Altogether, some 100 trillion microbial cells crawl in and on us, 10 times more than our own human cells. With nearly 10,000 different species, all adapted to different habitats and conditions, the human body, it turns out, is an entire ecosystem unto itself.
So this is a new frontier. Inner space. Our inner space is as complex a phenomenon as outer space.
Despite our millions of years of living together, we're only just now getting acquainted with our resident collection of microbes, our microbiomes. And one thing is troubling. It seems nearly a century of antibiotics, antiseptics, and other antimicrobial practices is taking its toll on them.
We are causing extensive damage. It's like an atomic bomb in our body. A lot of innocent bystanders or even good guys die. And then we never go back to the initial healthy balance. And when we impact early enough, that may cause a permanent damage.
Take H. pylori, a bacterium that's taken up residence in the human gut for more than 100,000 years. We've nurtured a kind of love-hate relationship with this little bugger. On the one hand, it helps us by orchestrating our gastric hormones, aiding in digestion, signaling when we're hungry, and producing energy. On the other, it also happens to be the notorious critter behind stomach ulcers and cancers, secreting a chemical that eats away at our stomach lining. For better or worse, 100 years ago, nearly 100% of babies born in the U.S. had H. pylori lining their intestines. Today, thanks to an ever-increasing use of antibiotics, only 6% of newborns have it. H. pylori, says NYU Chief of Medicine Martin Blazer, is a double-edged sword.
This was an ancient organism that we all had that has disappeared. And ulcer disease is disappearing, which is great. But now other diseases are rising. And those diseases are rising dramatically.
Reflux, esophageal disease, even some cancers are all on the upswing because this one bacterial species among thousands has gone missing. And H. pylori is just the beginning. Many of the diseases now plaguing the developed world, allergies, asthma, infectious diseases, Crohn's disease, diabetes, obesity, anxiety, depression, all are being linked, at least in part, to the loss of the aliens inside us. And medicine is just beginning to wake up to it.
We have to understand our friends as well as we understand our enemies. And we are not yet there. We have much more friends than enemies, so it's going to be harder.
For Maria Gloria Dominguez Bello, the first step in charting this alien new world is to seek out the little friends that lived in and on us before our all-out war against microbes began. Friends that she believes we still depend on. To do it, she, along with her team from the University of Puerto Rico, New York University, and Peru's Ministry of Health, are headed about as far from modern civilization as one can get. The Amazon rainforest. Beginning with a charter flight courtesy of the Peruvian military, the team sets off from Iquitos, Peru, to an airstrip. From there, it's still another 2 days by boat to a tiny village called Chicherta, and one of the most remote indigenous groups on Earth. Maria Gloria believes they host a sacred source of the ancient microbes we all evolved with.
We want people that live in isolation and don't have our practices, don't use soap, don't use antibiotics, and all these things that we think impact our microbes that live on our bodies.
Even way out here, days away from the nearest cell towers and gas stations, those people are hard to find.
If the goal was to sample people who've had minimal exposure to antibiotics, here we are. And even in the little villages, in the dispensaries, they're full of antibiotics. So we're interested in the people who are just beyond the edge, who haven't gotten that progress, so we can begin to evaluate what's the difference.
3 days and a couple of hundred river miles later, they're about to peer into an ancient, invisible universe that we're only beginning to understand. More species swim, crawl, slither, buzz, and grow in the Peruvian Amazon than just about anywhere else on the planet. But Maria Gloria Dominguez Bello is here to explore an ecosystem no less diverse: the human body. Thousands of species of microbes live in and on each one of us, and Maria Gloria is part of a revolutionary new quest to understand what they all do.
We just arrived in Chicherta finally, after, 9 hours in the boat today? 10. And we are waiting for the Apu, the chief of the community, to allow us to come in.
The Chicherta are one of dozens of remote Amerindian tribes that have inhabited the Amazon for millennia. While missionaries have made their way here over the years, providing modern clothing and limited supplies, the Chicherta rarely, if ever, confronted antibiotics, touched antibacterial soaps, or breathed conditioned air. As a result, their microbiomes, the community of organisms that take up residence in and on them, are relatively pristine. And the team is anxious to see what they're made of. After some negotiation, the Apo, or chief, agrees to receive the group, and the whole village comes out to welcome them.
Mucho gusto, gracias. Yeah, it's good. The Apu is sitting in that corner and he didn't move, but we are welcome. Now we can hang our hammocks. ¿Y tú?
The Chicherta may be isolated, but they're no strangers to disease. Instead of asthma and obesity, they get malaria, parasites, and other infectious diseases, and they want treatments. The trick for doctors, like NYU's Aura Lee branch, is making sure they don't trade one set of diseases for another,
And their whole lifestyle is more acute. They go out, they go hunting, they get sick, and they recognize that. But at the same time, they are progressing. I think that the challenge for us is to learn how to envelope these communities into our world, but still be able to protect culture, keep in their more natural state, which probably for the microbiome is a better state.
First light, and the team can finally get to work.
Yeah, I have swabs.
The plan? Take DNA samples from dozens of Chicherta men, women, and children, along with their houses, workspaces, and even livestock and pets, to see what microbes live in, on, and all around them. It's a daunting challenge.
We have a very unhappy chicken, but we got it. Each sample has a huge, veritable zoo of organisms with multiple different species. And by understanding what species are common here and what species are common in North America and other places, we can begin to look at the relationships, what's conserved and what's been lost.
Turns out, the human body is a zoo unto itself. Hands, feet, elbows, mouths, intestines. Each is its own ecosystem, as uniquely suited to the microbes that live there as a desert or a rainforest.
Number 10.
Just like any habitat, when conditions change, so does its diversity of creatures. The researchers have the task of measuring all of this. And Maria Gloria suspects the Chicherta have very different microbes than we do.
We have some preliminary evidence, and the differences are huge. We tend to have, for example, more bacteria in the mouth, more diversity. And that's kind of shocking because we thought they would be more diverse. Because we use toothpaste and fluoride, and we don't know what it means, but we do have more diversity than them. In the intestine, we tend to have less diversity than them.
The scientists are still determining their significance, but many of these fluctuations are likely driven by diet, like more starchy vegetables and fiber, and less protein and fat. All part of the Chicherta's natural lifestyle.
We grow and harvest things, yucca and plantains and potatoes. We take herbs when our heads or stomachs hurt.
2 days ago.
The researchers take note of these traditional remedies, which may have an effect on the Chicherta's microbes, for better or worse. Head into any village home at just about any time of day, for example, and you'll find a bubbling pot of masato, an alcoholic brew made from the yucca plant. To ferment it, turn the sugar in the fruit to alcohol. It takes a very special ingredient, saliva, from the entire family. It may not seem appetizing, but men here can spend hours sipping the brew, one of many traditions which they say keeps them fit and healthy. Mashkia Shimpikti is the recently elected chief of the village.
We eat a lot of fruit, fish, and other animals, so we are all healthy. The women always keep everything in order, ask their daughters to sweep. We always bathe, vomit, and that's how we maintain ourselves.
That's right, vomit. Every morning around 3 a.m., men over 15 gather around the fire, drink a tea made from the toxic leaf of the Wayuska plant, and within about 15 minutes, they claim it gives them strength and vitality. One can only imagine what it does to their microbiomes.
The microbiome controls everything. It controls the immune response. It controls the way you metabolize, whether or not you have obesity. So just by men after age 15 taking this drink and vomiting every night, it might change their microbiome.
55,1.
Vomiting, communal saliva drinks, all of it has an effect, and the researchers are going to try to make sense of it all.
We will go through and look at the diversity of the microbiome in the gut and relate that with weight and height and age, and to see if there's an association between the microbiome and the growth and health of an individual.
Perro? Perro. ¿Cómo se llama el perro?
So far, we can't say whether the Chicherta's all-natural, antibiotic-free microbiomes foster healthier microbes than life in the developed world. Maria Gloria knows the answers won't be so cut and dry.
Whoever survives here has probably an optimum immune system. You can see they are not malnourished. Their diet is all natural. They do a lot of exercise, walking, running, working. But, of course, they are victims of infectious diseases that we have all the means to control.
It's a fine balance. The ultimate would be to neutralize the infectious microbes that cause disease while nurturing the ones that keep us healthy. To do that, we need to peer inside our microscopic universes within and start figuring out how our trillions of microbes got here in the first place. If we want to coexist peacefully with the aliens inside us, it may help to understand how our relationship with microbes began. Turns out, that was a very long time ago.
The earliest life on Earth was bacteria, and for the first 1.5 billion or 2 billion years, it was all bacteria. And then larger forms of life started to evolve.
As evolution marched on, those first early critters never left. Life evolved in lockstep with our microbial ancestors. Sometimes alongside each other, sometimes much closer. Sometimes we went to war. But much more likely, we adapted to new conditions together. We got things like extra energy and immunity. They got free room and board.
All living things have associated microbes because microbes are on this planet first. The plants, your pets at home, your kids, you, there are 10 times more microbial cells than human cells in and on the human body. So when you look in the mirror, if you see a human face, actually what you're really looking at are microbes.
Bacteria, viruses, fungi, protozoans. The average person carries some 100 trillion microbes around with them every day. Some 3 to 4 pounds worth. That's about as heavy as our brains. For every one we know, H. pylori, lactobacillus, streptococcus, there are thousands we don't. But from our mouths to our guts to our belly buttons, where more than 60 different types of bacteria reside, by the way, all of them have co-evolved with us to help make us, us. It took a huge step to start decoding this alien world inside us. Building on the techniques of the Human Genome Project 10 years ago, the Human Microbiome Project is tracking hundreds of people and their microbes to see which ones live where in a healthy human body and what they do. Their findings so far have surprised even the researchers. Lita Proctor is the project's director.
There's upwards of 10,000 different species of microbes that live with humans. And when I say live with humans, I don't mean in the presence of disease. I mean in healthy people like you and me. We're all host to these microbes.
And the really radical part? Those microbes lend their genes to us. So whereas just a few years ago, we thought the human genome, with its 23,000 genes, was the be-all, end-all of a human being, driving all the cells, organs, and chemical processes that keep us humming. Now it seems all those ancient life forms residing in and on us churn out genes we need too. A lot of them.
And we're estimating at this point something like upwards of 8 million unique microbial genes associated with our bodies.
Just to be clear, that's 8 million genes from microbes compared to only 23,000 human genes.
That's about 250 to 1. We're more than 99% microbial genes compared to human genes. They're encoding for proteins that do work for us. They make enzymes, they digest things, they convert things. They're part of our biology.
Fending off foreign invaders, digesting food, or synthesizing vitamins, we're only just beginning to comprehend all the things our millions of microbial genes do for us. What is clear, we need them to keep on doing them. And there's no more critical time than the beginning.
8, 9, and 10.
You'll remember, inside the womb, there are no microbes. It's just mom and baby. The moment we leave, all that changes. What scientists like Maria Gloria are just learning is that this initial alien invasion is critical to our overall health. And mom's body is tailor-made to make sure the right invaders get in.
So all mammals have their babies form inside. All mammals have their babies through a birth canal full of bacteria, and all mammals drink milk.
Months before baby is born, while he's still safe and sterile in the womb, certain microbes in mom's vagina are already rallying to ensure baby gets the microbes he needs as he passes through. Levels of the bacteria Lactobacillus, for example, similar to the ones in yogurt and probiotic supplements, begin ramping up. And that's no accident.
The babies grow, develop in utero without bacteria, and before they come out, they have to cross this birth canal full of lactic acid bacteria. It's like a yogurt.
During birth, baby gets coated in this yogurt, swallows a bit, and like pioneers settling the West, those lactobacillus plant their flags, colonize his gut, and eventually help him digest milk.
All mammals drink strictly milk, so these vaginal bacteria are probably very important.
Like a carefully tended starter culture handed down from mom to our species, this baptism by microbe is nature's way of ensuring our human-microbe relationship remains healthy. The problem is, these days, a staggering number of babies aren't born this way. 1/3 of all American newborns, more than 1 million each year, bypass the birth canal and are born surgically via C-section. As a result, they get infiltrated by a whole different set of microbes. Skin bacteria, not just from mom, but from doctors, nurses, even just by breathing the air in the operating room. Maria Gloria, whose own daughter was born via C-section, is among the first to study their effects on babies.
The first time we did this, we studied C-section babies, we were expecting the baby to be sterile because it comes out from a germ-free environment into germ-free gloves, and we were shocked when we found skin bacteria.
Scientists aren't yet sure what getting the wrong dose of microbes means exactly, but they do know one thing. C-section babies have a higher incidence of certain diseases. They suffer from allergies, asthma, and other immune disorders way more than naturally born babies do. And it may well be because they're missing the microbes that distinguish friend from foe.
The first bacteria that colonize a baby are training the immune system and telling the baby who are the good guys, so that the immune system learns to differentiate between good bacteria and pathogens.
If the wrong microbes get in first, this balance is upset from the start. Not only are we more at risk from our enemies, our own immune systems don't recognize and can even start attacking our friends. With our microbiomes out of whack, we pay the price.
The microbes are competing for turf. And if they fill up the turf and all the niches are occupied, it's harder for the invader to come in. But if the stomach is now empty, it makes life easier for the invader.
Today, for the first time ever, Maria Gloria will try to make it as easy for the good microbes as possible by recreating the benefits of a natural birth. Maria Santiago's about to have a C-section. Before she does, Maria Gloria will incubate a piece of gauze in her birth canal for about an hour, saturating it with the bacteria baby needs.
And when the baby comes out, we will clean the baby with that gauze and hope that those bacteria inoculate the baby.
Sounds simple, but the team will need to work fast. Just a few of the wrong microbes can determine the outcome of the entire race. Childbirth may be the first and most dramatic introduction to the microbial world, but it's certainly not our last. From the food we eat, to the people we meet, to the medicines we take. Throughout our lives, we're constantly shaping and reshaping the aliens inside us. And never more so than in the last 100 years.
Okay, you do this one then.
Back in the Amazon, Maria Gloria and her team raced to collect as many samples from the Chicherta as possible to identify which microbes we evolved with and which ones we still likely need.
18 feet 6 inches. Since Homo sapiens began perhaps 200,000 years ago, we've all been evolving. But in the last century, we in the Western countries have really done a lot to change our microbes. Chlorination of water, antiseptics, antibiotics, cesarean sections. All of these things have a bearing on the composition of our microbes. And so we're seeking out peoples who've had less exposure to these modern issues so that we can sample to compare what they have with what we have.
The microbes inside us aren't a fixed population.
Faucet wall floor.
They're affected by our lifestyles. Everything from what we eat, to where we sleep, to how much fresh air we're exposed to. As a result, the scientists are not limiting their sampling to humans alone. In addition to doctors and microbiologists, Maria Gloria has brought along an engineer and an architect to determine not just what microbes live here, but where they live and why.
The microbes are adapted to the different environments. Walls can be touched by humans. There may be skin microbes there. Food, meat, there could be animals, microbes in the kitchen or vegetables. But the idea is to associate use of space with microbes.
They can't test everything. Microbes are everywhere, so they focus on the main sources that could affect our microbiomes and our health.
There are primary sources of microbes. Humans are a primary source, animals are a primary source, the air and the environment, the soil is a primary source, and there are ways to dissect out in a mixture which is which.
The scientists swab for DNA on everything, from beds to cooking surfaces to cups. By then combining the data with things like humidity, temperature, and airflow, they can determine which bacteria like living where, and how we in the developed world may be changing them.
Anytime you can see color, there are microbes. Even when you can't see color, there are microbes. That was number 8.
In New York, people live maybe 99% of their time indoors in controlled environments, but controlled environments are altered environments where there is very little natural ventilation, for example. Everything is clean with bleach, and we use soaps and antibacterials, and so we really are giving our microbes a pretty artificial lifestyle. Here, what we expect to find is that they will have much more environmental microbes in their skin, especially soil.
They may be more tolerant to all these environmental microbes because they have a good trained immune system.
To prove whether or not the Cicerta's microbes provide a more robust immune system than ours, Maria Gloria needs to extend her search 2,000 miles downriver to the other side of the Amazon, where she'll trade one kind of jungle for another. Welcome to Manaus, Brazil, the Amazon's largest city. With more than 1 million people and a thriving economy, it has all the amenities of a Western developed city. Since it's about the same latitude as Cicerta, with similar natural habitats and climates, Maria Gloria believes it's the perfect place to compare the natural microbes we likely evolved with to the ones shaped by modern life. At her high-rise condo in downtown Manaus, Rosangela de Andrade lives far from the wilds of the jungle. Sealed off from the outside world, behind windows and air conditioning, she's a self-confessed germaphobe, religiously mopping her floors with bleach, scrubbing her dishes with antibacterial cleansers, and bathing 3 times a day.
I love to waste a whole bar of soap. I like the smell of it.
Yeah, perfume.
But my friends say that it's a mania, like a mania I have. I have to go to the psychologist. Dirty.
Rosangela may not like to think about it, but for every microbe she kills, she's constantly shedding and stirring up more.
Bacteria are everywhere. Imagine in the air, a cubic meter of air will have about 10 million bacteria. There might be different kinds of bacteria, lots of diversity. Skin bacteria, probably. If you have a dog, the dog bacteria, they are everywhere. We have to breed them. We have to live with them, and we just have to know which ones are good and which ones are harmful.
Nice dog.
Just as they did in Cicerta, the team swabs for DNA from people, pets, and their environments to identify all the microbes that live here, all the while taking visual and quantitative snapshots, comparing city life to that of the rainforest.
We're trying to sample the same functional places across all the different habitations. Kitchens have a central function, bathrooms have a function, bedrooms have a function, living rooms have a function. So we're trying to do the parallel places in each habitation.
By taking detailed measurements and sketches of each location, architect Umberto Cabellin generates 3D renderings of the homes. The segregated living spaces of the city, bedrooms, kitchens, bathrooms, living rooms, provide a stark contrast to the openness of the jungle homes, where rooms and walls are unheard of. By coupling the layout of the rooms with the biology data, the scientists can home in on where different microbes like to live. Engineer Attila Novuselec and grad student Gina Ruiz assess the living conditions of each location. By injecting carbon dioxide into the homes, for example, and measuring how long it takes to dissipate, they can see how well the rooms are ventilated.
3,460. Think about this air as a highway for this microbiological materials. So the injected CO2 is giving us information about how much outside air is getting into the house.
It's an enormous amount of data to compile and ultimately make sense of. But all of it may have an effect on our microbes.
This is like the early steps of exploring space. We're trying to understand what's out there, or what's in there, in this case. And we have to understand all the different factors so that we can begin to develop good hypotheses about what's keeping us healthy and what makes us sick.
Considering we spend 90% of our lives indoors, anything that tells us which microbes like living where can become extremely important to our health. Similar research, for example, found that microbes on our toilet seat, skin and gut bacteria, yes, most likely from fecal matter, were almost indistinguishable from the microbes on our pillows. Yet another recent study at a U.S. hospital, a place most of us regard as squeaky clean, found its air, filtered through an industrial ventilation system, had more human-borne infectious bacteria circulating through its corridors than the fresh air coming in through its windows.
So the fact that we have expensive houses and nice furniture, we use a lot of clinic products, and we isolate ourselves from other environment doesn't mean that we're healthier at all, and that our environment is healthier.
If the team finds that the Cicerta's way of living, open spaces, natural ventilation, lots of sunlight, fosters healthier microbes than cleansers and air filtration systems, that's an easy fix. We can cut back on hand sanitizers, perhaps, and open some windows. Maria Gloria suspects we're way too compulsive anyway.
We overdo it. Excess hygiene is probably not good if it disturbs the good microbes of the body, but we don't know. We have to see.
With any luck, in these vials, Maria Gloria may just have what she needs to start putting the pieces together. In an operating room in San Juan, Puerto Rico, Maria Santiago anxiously awaits her C-section. And the excitement in the room is unusually high. C-section babies don't typically get the lactobacillus and other protective microbes they'd normally get from passing through mom's birth canal. Their first exposure is from other bacteria in the hospital, mostly skin, which may put them at risk for certain diseases. Today, Maria Gloria Dominguez Bello will try to intercede. She's incubated a piece of gauze in mom's vagina for more than an hour now. As soon as Dr. Kemari Mendez and her team remove baby from the womb, Maria Gloria will wipe him down with the gauze and, with a little luck, beat the other microbes to the punch.
What nature has evolved to do is to get the baby inoculated with the birth canal bacteria right at birth, before coming out. So it's very important that we act quickly, because otherwise the baby will be first colonized by Streptococcus from the skin and other typically skin bacteria.
Now for the moment of truth. A beautiful baby boy. It looks simple, but a few quick dabs in his mouth and all over his body can have massive effects. Babies are microbe magnets. Each nook and cranny provides an irresistible new home to billions of critters. Many of these pioneers will establish colonies that will remain with baby for the rest of his days, working with his immune system to keep themselves and baby alive.
His immune system has to be educated to tolerate the good ones, the friends, and to attack the enemies. So it's a race to get there first and send the signals to the baby.
Now, even if microbes are different in C-section babies, that doesn't mean they're going to get sick. Good microbes may well find their way in later. They are, though, as a group, much more likely to get certain diseases. The allergies, asthma, and other immune disorders that our microbes may help prevent. For Maria Gloria, that's no coincidence. She'll need to wait for the lab results. But if a little dab from mom can deliver the right set of bacteria to little Josh here and reduce his disease risk, her baptism by microbe could help millions of babies.
If it works, this could change the practice of medicine. Women who have cesarean sections, they may routinely get their babies covered with their vaginal contents, in essence reproducing what they missed by having the cesarean section.
Monkey, monkey.
Of course, threats to our friendly microbes don't stop at birth. From strep throat to ear infections, by the time they're 2, kids in the U.S. receive some 10 to 20 courses of antibiotics. Doctors prescribe some 40 million doses a year. Now it seems these miracle drugs aren't just taking out the bad guys.
So the question is, what are we doing to our kids?
Ready, Claire?
I think that antibiotics are miraculous. I've seen antibiotics save people's lives time and again. But maybe in total, the cost is greater than the benefit.
Study after study is revealing the costs are high, linking our loss of friendly microbes to everything from diabetes and obesity to heart disease and neurological disorders. Studies in mice find that animals fed antibiotics from an early age grow significantly fatter than those that aren't. One possible reason? Microbes signal how hungry or full they are. Without them, the mice may just keep eating and eating and eating. Other research shows that changes to microbes in the gut affect signals in the brain, altering a mouse's personality by making it more hyperactive, more anxious, and more likely to take risks. These effects haven't been proven in humans yet, but the concern is, as we pile modern antiseptic living on top of antibiotics, on top of C-sections, they're only likely to get worse.
It could get worse. Each mother is passing down less and less of our ancestral bacteria, and our hypothesis is that that's what's fueling many of these rising epidemics.
Asthma, reflux, allergies. These are new diseases. You know, they weren't around 20 years ago. It's like every generation, they go up exponentially.
The answer isn't to do away with things like C-sections or antibiotics, which have saved millions of lives, but to find smarter ways of employing them without the collateral damage. Pharmaceutical companies are developing antibiotics that target specific pathogens rather than the broad-spectrum kind that blast all of our microbes. Food and supplement manufacturers are trying to produce probiotics that help good bacteria to flourish. Doctors are even performing fecal transplants, where they take gut microbes from someone healthy and insert them into someone sick, with dramatic results.
There's a lot of interest in the medical field about this. You got to think of the human and the microbes as one entity. They are us. And when you think about when you treat the human, now you got to treat the microbes.
Before we can treat anyone, man or microbe, we're going to need a much clearer picture of how we work together. That's why communities like the Cicerta are so important.
If those guys in Cicerta have a lot of organisms that we're missing, some of those might be useful when it comes time to replace the ones that we're missing.
Of course, the outside world is beginning to find its way here, too. In Spanish, a language that was barely uttered here even a year ago, school kids sing of washing their hands and good hygiene. Medicines and antibiotics are trickling in. While the Cicertas start to embrace modern life, Maria Gloria's mission is to preserve life of a different kind, the ancient, microscopic life we continue to need.
So far, medicine has concentrated in defense, defending against the bad guys. But it's time to think in how to protect our friends, the little guys that co-evolve with us. We haven't thought about that. We haven't worked on that. We don't know who they are, what they do. So we better learn now and understand what it takes to develop for the human and the human health.
If we want to understand how we work and make sure we keep on working, it's time we began acknowledging all the organisms we share our bodies with. All 100 trillion of them.